The entrepreneurial journey, it continues. And as a franchisor or potentially a new franchisor, what does it take to succeed? And is it possible to go from zero franchise locations to over 100 in less than 5 years? That's not a common feat. But today we're going to speak with the founder of Glow Tanning, talk about their journey to 100 and beyond, the mindset they're applying to their franchise growth strategy, what their franchise development looks like, and key insights, everything from philosophy as to good fit franchisees to how to view private equity, when to exit, and most important, how to grow your franchise system, how to get to 100 units. Onyi, I think when we speak, you're very understated in the most positive way possible. But Glow Tanning, you started back in 2019 in Arkansas, and now you're over 100 locations open. So, I mean, just start off, if just briefly, who you are, your brand, and let's talk about what the growth strategy and journey has been like.
Yeah, appreciate it. Appreciate you having me. Now 37, started the brand when I was 21, 2010 in Fayetteville, Arkansas, went to the University of Arkansas. First location was across the street from the University of Arkansas. Had a multiple 7-figure exit, in 2018, from the largest, chain in our industry. And, was looking at getting into something else and buying into another franchise as a franchisee. One of the franchises I actually looked at was Wingstop, and they never even called me back. So I was like, hey, I'm really good at what I do, in this space. So I will just continue to do it because I still retain the rights to the name and all that. I just had a non-compete in Arkansas where my 7 locations that I had at that time were. So basically started franchising 2019. Part of the reason why is previously I had a corporate structure in place and had 7 locations to basically help pay for all the admin costs when it came to the call center and, HR and recruiting and all these other things that I had, inventory. Well, because I was basically starting over, I didn't have that infrastructure. In addition to that, I mentored some people in the industry, and they also could not afford to have that same structure that I had previously to be successful. So it was like, hey, how about we pool resources? And when I was going to do a licensing type of agreement, and we just pool resources. And my attorney was like, hey, that's a franchise, so just make a franchise. So the idea was never to actually start a franchise. It was more just like a collective, and then it ended up turning into a franchise. And now started first franchisee was 2019.
Our audience, franchisors, brokers, franchise buyers, you successfully exited your business, you're an entrepreneur. What was it like entering the franchise world? Like, how did you view it when you entered the space? And what was the mindset and strategy you adopted as you said, hey, I want to build this into, a quality brand that I'm assuming improves lives. I could see it as we're speaking. Like, what was the mindset you applied?
Money not being the motivation, number one. Number two is making sure to try to make the easiest franchise to run, period, point blank period. So essentially taking all the responsibility that we could to make things as easy as possible. So like for us, no phones ring inside the stores. There's a store line, but that's for the owner or, the employee's, boyfriend or something to call, not for a customer call. So everything is routed to a central line and we handle that. And there's no extra fees for the franchisee. When we first started, we did inventory for everybody. We did recruiting for everybody. We did all these things. We stopped doing recruiting because there was a lawsuit with McDonald's where they recruited some management for a franchisee that failed, and he sued and won. So we were told we couldn't do that anymore, which is great for us because that was a big headache to recruit for all those stores. But and so we did charge no fees at all on any of this stuff, just the typical 6.5% that we charge for royalty. In addition to that, until last year, we never even charged a marketing and tech fee. So I've pretty much made it to a franchise that I would want to be a part of. And just like I still, until last year, I've never been profitable on franchising. So it took, 6+ years to actually even get to where it's like semi-profitable. And even when it was profitable, it's just paying back the debt from the previous, 6 years. So I'm not leading with money, and that's what's led us to really grow. And this year we'll sign another 100 locations. In the last, 30 days, we've signed 15. We've actually never tried to actively grow until November 1st this year, when we started like basically opening it up, because I focus more on the operation and essentially like, let's master the operation. Let's make sure everything's perfect so we can grow. Then one thing that I've noticed, because, some people have reached out to me that want to franchise their business and just see their mentor or help or do whatever. And they say, hey, what's your advice? Whatever. And I'm like, you have one location. Like, that's a terrible idea in my opinion. I would never franchise somebody who has one location. You need to have at least like 4 locations. You need to prove the concept. You also need to prove the concept in different areas. If you have one location, how do I know that one location is just not a fluke? How do I know that one location doesn't just run because it's you? Every single successful franchise, including the best franchise in the world, start off with one location. I still would not have franchised that with one location. When they have 3, 4, 5, up to 10 locations, whatever it is, before they start franchising, what that does is allows you to figure out operational kinks. Most people franchise, they want to franchise a business that's scalable. They're not looking to replace their day job with another job. They're not trying to pay for a job. So if you haven't proven that something is scalable, and that it could be, extremely efficient. If somebody works 50 hours a week and they have one location, because you work 50 hours a week is why that's successful. When you have 4 locations, you're only able to dedicate 12.5 hours to each location, or you have to build systems and processes that kind of lead up to where you can really oversee everything. So we wanted to build that system out and, really make sure that like, hey, we have this figured out all the way. I mean, at one point I got up to 16 corporate locations. I've sold this past year, I sold 6 of those. The year before that, I sold a few as well. So down to 6 corporate locations. But I really wanted to see what it was like to run the operation on that big of a scale, and so that other franchisees are able to do the same thing.
Yeah, there's a ton here. I mean, like a ton. And so let's talk about the growth strategy, because so often when we're working with our clients, we're talking about, where and when do you get to royalty sufficiency in terms of your royalties are covering your expenses as a franchisor, right? And for many of our clients, I explain to them, or we plan toward the fact that this is very likely a 5-year journey, right? But so that mindset's amazing, but what makes what you're doing even more amazing is the fact that you've decided to create scale and build a big ecosystem over support franchisees. I mean, if you have about 100 locations open now, and you're focusing on, you're projecting another 100 units to be sold this year, right? What is that like in terms of, how you approach funding and managing your franchise company? What's the thought process? I'm going to build a big footprint with locations all over, and then the profitability is going to scale up after that.
Yeah. So for us, everything is about control to me. So I want to have complete control of the brand. So we're not looking, a year and a half ago, I did this interview with this brand called School of Hard Knocks. They have like probably 7 million followers now. Back then, they didn't have that many followers, maybe like 500,000. The interview went like super viral, 25 million views within 30 days. Because of that, I never even mentioned the name of my company in that interview, but people obviously do research, whatever. Because of that, we had 2,500 applications. And out of the 2,500 applications, I accepted 1. So because at the time it just wasn't, we want to make sure that we have the real system and process in place to really scale. If in terms of people who financially qualified, 1,500 of those people probably didn't financially qualify, but 1,000 of them could have easily opened locations. But the issue was, a lot of them just have the money and aren't going to actually be operators. And I need people who either have an operator that is, the wife, the husband, the cousin, the sister, the brother has equity, something, because what we don't want to do is we don't want to be stuck having to take a location over or something happening that makes it not make sense or work out. For us, when it comes to Glow, in 15 years, we've never closed one location. So we have 100% success rate, and I want to keep that. Because of that, there's a formula that we have, and that formula, it might be A, B plus C, D, and E equals F. And a lot of times with franchises, people are wanting so much money to scale so quickly that they let people do A, B, D, and E and skip the C. And I'm not willing to do that. In addition to that, I've never taken investors' money. We're debt free. So just scaling the right way compared to, just scaling just to scale. And I think, I'm not sure why people, maybe because they have a motivation to exit, sooner than later, I guess. But I've already exited once and then realized that I kind of regretted doing that. So I have no desire to exit. Somebody can come offer me, $150 million right now, and the answer would be no. So I love what I do. If you gave me an extra $5 million a year, it wouldn't change my lifestyle. So for us, there's no rush in trying to, get to where we want to get to, and doing it the right way is what's most important. And brand integrity, more than anything else. So one of the other parts of the question that you said about financing, we've never been denied financing. SBA just took away the approved franchise list last year, whatever it was, but we were on that list. When it comes to franchises, they look at the FDD. Our FDD is audited. After 2 years of having FDD, you have to get audited. FDD is audited. Our average unit does about $350,000 profit a year. Our profit margins are about a little over 40% of top line revenue. So for us, we, any bank that sees that, they instantly approve us. We have a 100% success rate. I mean, at some point somebody is going to fail, but hopefully no time soon. But we figure if we follow the right formula, that just won't happen.
I appreciate this conversation. And by the way, anyone listening, of course, check out the FDD and only rely on information in the FDD. But I made a bunch of notes, right? And I wrote down on my notes, brand uniques. I wrote ideal fit franchisees, brand uniques, franchise development strategy, keys to franchisee support, no private equity, which are all critical topics to emerging franchisors. So many new franchisors, and we see it all the time, they'll reach out and they're stuck. Maybe they franchised 2-3 years ago. When we peel back the hood, aside from legal issues or structure, what I typically find is they haven't really clarified and understand who they are in the marketplace in terms of what their brand positioning is, what makes their brand unique. And, and not from a marketing standpoint, but from owning what are the uniques of our brand and how do we transform franchisee lives? How would you answer that? Or how do you think about that if we're having a drink and I say, well, what makes you unique? Yeah, how do you transform franchisee lives? And, and why glow tanning versus something else?
Yeah,
and I know you're not promotional and this is not what this is about, but I'm saying this only for the franchisors that are out there that I feel like they don't have enough clarity and ownership, because to say it, you need to own it if you're genuine.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that more than anything else, because I tell people, there's a lot of times people associate me with Glow, hey, that's Onyi's business. No, that's it's our business. And I explain it like this, if we have one franchisee that has, 15 locations out in the Northeast. We have one in the Denver metro that has 9. We have some that have 1, 3, whatever it is, right? And I say, okay, listen, if we have 100 locations and you own 15, you're a 15% shareholder in the company. And it's all of our company, and I want people to feel that way, and they do feel that way. So their voice is heard. There's no top-down leadership, period. And that's how, when we do something, it's voting. When it's voted upon, even if I'm on the losing side, my vote counts no different than everybody else's vote, even as a founder and the CEO. So we really make sure that everybody has a voice, because they understand that this is everyone's company, and that's how that's how I do it. So that's number one. Number two is in terms of like how changing their lives. I mean, it's life-changing money for them. I mean, if you have a store, some stores profit 250, some stores profit 600,000. So, if you have 4 stores, you're easily making $1 million profit if you're debt free, and that's life-changing money. And we have systems and processes in place where people can own stores and not have to actually work those stores. They obviously have to know what's going on in their stores and have good management in place and all that. But that's what we try to do, and we try to make an impact on our employees as well and change their lives. We just had our annual convention on Monday. We have an MLK Day every year, and that was just an amazing event, very motivating for all the staff. And we have this program called the Own Your Future program, where if you work for us for 3 years, we'll link you with an investor and get you a store. And the previous year, I think we had 6 employees graduate through it. This year we had, I think, another like 7 employees that graduated through the Own Your Future program. So that's the biggest thing. And that's like, if I had to say like, what is my like legacy or life work, is being able to get, one is you say a W-2, a high earning income W-2 employee that wants to be able to own a business but doesn't have the time to manage a business, while also getting an employee that would typically make 12 to 15 bucks an hour and getting them to own a business as well. And, within a few years when their loan's paid off, now, that W-2 employee is making 150 to 200K a month, and that $12 to $15 an hour employee is now making 150 to 200K a year as well. That right there is what's life-changing.
I think one of the frustrating things I see with many new franchisors is that, what brought them to franchising was a special business, that hard work transforming their own families' lives, and why they approach franchising. And, it's all about making that difference for your franchisees and your customers. So for someone new out there, for new franchisors that maybe they're about to franchise, or they franchise their business already, they feel like they're stuck from a franchise sales and growth process, what would be some 3 things or things you would recommend they focus on to make sure their house is in order, and to check these items before they even consider growing or spending money on sales and franchise development?
Yeah, so I think you have to kind of look at what is it that somebody's paying you for, right? If you're a franchise, and let's just say, give me a random type of business real quick. Just
say a home service-based business. They go to your home and fix things.
Okay, so home service-based business, right? Home repair. Okay, why can I not just go and open one myself? I can just go and do the same exact thing. I don't, what am I paying for? Well, to answer that question, what you're paying for branding, you're paying for marketing, you're paying for a system and operation. So what I mean by that is, they're paying to understand how to recruit potential, handymen. What's the pay structure or a guideline for the pay structure that I should use to pay these handymen? A system for scheduling these people, a sales process, a closing system. These are the things that they're paying for. If you don't have all these things ready to go, proven concept with, like, in my opinion, at least minimum 4 locations, then you're not ready to franchise. And that's really like the biggest thing, is that people think because they have one business and they're doing a good job with that one business, it's like, no, like that's pretty much a job. You have to prove that you can turn a business into a business, not a job. So a lot of times it's like somebody says, oh, I'm an entrepreneur. Like, no, you're a solopreneur. Like, your lash lady is not an entrepreneur. Now, Amazing Lash Studio, they've done a great job. They created a business, but typically people don't know how to take themselves out of the business. And for you to take yourself out of the business, you have to build systems, processes, SOPs, ways that things are done. And that's what they're paying for. They're paying for branding, paying for marketing, and then they're paying for the systems. And if you don't have those things in order, then you're not ready to franchise and you're not ready to sell.
Focusing on those items, house in order, validating franchisees. Right now, what does your franchise development process look like, right? So many franchisors are stressed about how much money they're spending on lead generation or how they qualify candidates. What does it look like in your universe in terms of attracting, onboarding, qualifying franchisees?
So qualifying franchisees, basically, we have so now it's a little different than previous. I'll kind of go with the previous, because we actually have a sales team now, which we officially started our sales team November 1st. It's kind of an outsourced sales team, but previously, somebody applies online. We have a call with them. My executive assistant would do the call. She would send me an email that had a complete layout, the market that they're looking at, what is their liquid income, what is their net worth, who's the potential operator, how many locations do they want. Any person that is not interested in at least doing potentially up to 4 locations, we are not interested in bringing on board. So if you don't have at least, $150,000 liquid, then you're not going to really qualify. $100,000 to $150,000 liquid, you're not going to qualify for the loan, because that's going to be, the down payment is going to be anywhere from $80,000 to $120,000. So those are things we look for, and then we kind of just eliminate people from there. And then just depending on the area, sometimes people are looking for areas that are not open, because I'm very loyal to my franchisees. So even if somebody has to pay for an area, they kind of tell me like, hey, this is my potential growth plan, and this is where I want to go, then I won't sell that area. And that's really like kind of it. So that's kind of where we're at. I mean, we went from 2 to 102 locations in, a little over 5 years. We went there without pretty much everybody's from within my network or our network, customers of our stores, friends or family of existing franchisees is how we've grown. In the last 2 years, we've only brought in 2 people outside of that network, if that makes any sense. We kind of say that Glow's like inbred, because it's, a lot of like friends and family of like franchisees and whatever, and that's how we've grown. And then also a lot of franchisees have a lot of locations. We have franchisees with, 3, 4, 9, 15 locations.
With a business like yours and all of your customers are potential franchisee candidates, right? What do you look for when internally you're evaluating if someone's a good fit to join your team and your brand as a franchisee? What is that persona, or what are you guys evaluating?
So we want so the thing I say, the biggest characteristic that I look for is ego. So I want somebody who lacks ego. Everybody obviously has an ego, but like people don't understand the difference between pride and ego. Pride, I'm very prideful, but I lack ego. So pride is like, I'm proud of what I do. I'm proud of, who I am, and I'm very, proud of what I can do. Ego means that you think you can do it alone. You think you can go alone. You think you know more than you know. So people who have that ego, for the most part, to me, they're not going to follow the system. And if you don't follow the system, what happens is you bring somebody on because they have money or whatever. They don't follow the system. They fail. And then next thing you know, they're blaming you for why they failed when they didn't even follow the system processes that you put in place. So it's not your fault, because everybody else who's followed it has, succeeded. You decided not to follow and you didn't succeed. So if we feel like if somebody comes in, we have a meeting and they say, no, I really love it, but if I do it, I want to make sure that I can offer this service. That's the service that we currently, because we are really kind of almost like a spa. We're really a sun spa. 40% of our services are spa services. So people come in, we don't offer like float pods or cryotherapy, and people come and say, oh, I really think we should do a float pod. So I would like to do a float pod in my location if we do it. Instantly, the answer is no. And we just reject them, because this is going to be a person that's a problem. We have a system and it works. Why would you try to mess with the system that we have? And then I also have a rule that says that you're not allowed to give us any feedback or input for a year. We don't want to hear anything you have to say for a year. Do it our way. And after a year that you've been doing it in our system in our way, then we're 100% open to all feedback. Even when we go to our owners meeting, which is the day before our national convention, which we call Glowvention, when we do voting, if you have not been here for a year, you don't have a vote.
That's if you want, that's a lot of confidence. I think that's a great distinction between ego and pride. Just so many insights here in terms of that journey and where you're at. 2 other things I'd love to just get your take on it, and maybe we could end off with because so many people, franchisors, equity deals come along all the time. You'd mentioned you may have regretted selling to private equity or whatnot. What's your thoughts there, or what would be the reservation you'd advise people about?
I was 30 years old when I sold. So 30 years old, not married, no kids, pretty much debt free. At the time I was living in Arkansas. I'm based in Dallas now, but Arkansas cost of living is very low. So having, multiple 7-figure exit, I thought that would make me happy. But a few things. One, you have to pay Uncle Sam a pretty penny. So whatever and depending on the state you're in, you might have to give up half of whatever that is. So that's number one. Number two, in addition to that, I don't think people realize that for you to be successful and for you to grow something, that it kind of almost becomes a part of you. You're like selling a part of yourself and a part of your identity. And then you kind of just sit around and it's like, do you actually enjoy what you're doing, or were you doing it for the money? And if you enjoy what you're doing, then what are you selling for? Obviously, everybody has a number that they're, it's like, hey, I have to sell because this number is X. But, even if you wanted to sell to take some risk off the table, you can also sell a percentage. And PE will come in and say, hey, we want to buy 50%, we want to buy 80%, or whatever. You can retain the other 20%. And, you can even roll some of your money in to the deal. So there's a bunch of different ways to do it. But I think the biggest thing is, like, if you really love what you do and you're not at the end of your road when it comes to your kind of work journey, then for me, it's like, there's no like true reason why I would sell again outside of like just, being tired of what I'm doing. But right now, I absolutely love what I'm doing. I love the journey. I love to build. I love to grow. I love to grow people. I love, so unless I can find something else to replace that feeling in what I'm doing, then there's no reason for me to sell. Like I truly don't actually have a realistic number.
That's awesome. It's something I think about so often, and it's like I enjoy every day, everything I'm doing. So it's amazing. Onyi, the advice you shared today is like I'm always shocked when we have these conversations because some amazing people, but I'm very grateful for what you shared with us today. One last thing, I just throw it out there. Any favorite books that when people say, hey, what do you recommend? Anything come to mind for you?
I really like this book called Great CEOs Are Lazy, by this guy named Jim Chalker. Yeah, I think that's that. All the rest of the books are very cliche. That's probably one that people haven't heard. Great CEOs Are Lazy are literally this thin, super simple. It's just about delegating. And I've been able to scale, like, I'm the CEO of 8 different companies. This is one. So been able to scale a lot because really I'm in the business of people. People are what's going to build your business. So you have to build the people, empower them, recruit them, train them, and do those things, and they'll build the company for you. There's no way that you have 100 locations, 200 locations. I think in the next 5 years, we'll get to 800 locations. And there's no way I can do that by myself. I might be the person that's, here on the podcast, but I'm not the person who's doing this by myself, not even close. So I think it's really about like building your team and getting the right people around you is the most important thing. And sometimes that takes time because sometimes you can't afford it. And for the longest time, up until probably the last like 18 months, I couldn't afford to get the right people in place. So we would have to just if I had a marketing person, I'd have to go hire them straight out of the university and pay them $35,000 a year. Now I can afford to go, get a CMO and pay them, a couple $100,000 a year. Because that's the position that we're in, compared to the position that we were in. So those things matter a lot.
Yeah, it seems everything. Onyi, I appreciate everything. I mean, we covered so much. I'm looking forward to, when this video's out there in our community and the feedback, and I'm looking forward to watching. I'll be following everything at Glow Tanning and really appreciate your time.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much, man.